In today's class, we'll see how to connect to a database using a JavaFX application. So I have a very simple demo here. Let me run this demo for you. So this is the screen that I'm going to use. This form will ask me username, password, gender, and subjects is a checkbox, and country is a combo box. So the user can enter some data here, name, password, and select his gender, select some subjects, select the country, and then submit. So once when he submits, record inserted successfully. So you're going to have this record here. So you see, record has been inserted successfully. So that's how we are going to use JavaFX with JDBC in this demo. We'll see how to do that. And one more important thing is I have some checks here. Let me show you what those checks are. Let us see those checks. It's very important, like you have these checks. If I skip entering the name, please enter the name. So if I enter the name and then if I press please enter the password, so if I enter the password and if I submit, please select your gender. So like that, for everything we have a check. If I select the gender and submit, select your subjects. If I don't select my country, select your country. And finally, if I select a country and then submit, it will say record inserted successfully. So you're going to have this record inserted in your database. So this is the demo that we're going to see in today's class. And this in the real world, how it's actually performed is they'll be using FXML to code the user interface. So why we use FXML is it's something like HTML. It just takes the logic of the user interface forms away from your core logic. But here we are not going to use FXML. As I've already told you, we are not concentrating on FXML in our syllabus and in our assignments. What we are going to do here is we are going to code the UI controls, and we're going to utilize them in our demo. Okay, let us now start coding that application. This is a JavaFX application, so we are going to have extends application, and we'll implement the start method here. So this is where we are going to write the code. And one important thing is we are working with a student record here. Student has name, password, gender, subject, and country. Obviously we are going to create a student class, so it's going to be class student, and we'll have all these data members for the student: private string name, and private string password, and private string gender. We'll also have a private string subjects. I'm having it as a string here. We can also have it as an array. So all the subjects the students are interested in, something like that, and private string country, so the country of the student. So we'll have all these data members for the student, and what we'll do is we'll have a constructor, parameterized constructor here, just to initialize the object. So this is the parameterized constructor that we have generated, and we are going to get all this data from the JavaFX form and initialize the student object. Once when we are done with initialization, the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to have a public method here, public method for inserting student record, very similar to what we have done in the last class for inserting a student record. And for insertion and deletion of a student record to a database, we need a database connection. So for this, what I have done is I have reused the class DBMS connection from our previous class lecture. So if you're not clear with this, please visit our previous class lecture on JDBC connections. I have shown a small application there, and I have used this DBMS connection class in my application. So what this class does is it has URL, name, and password, and we initialize the connection and we get connection. So this is for initializing the data members of this DBMS connection, and this is for get connection. So we'll pass URL, username, and password, and we'll be able to get a connection, and this is for closing connection. So this method we have already used it several times, and we'll be using that method, that class in our demo, and we'll create a connection. We just reuse our code from the previous class here. Say whenever I'm working with a database, I will create connection. I'll put everything inside a try catch block. Again, a very important practice we should have. And we'll print this out. We'll print e.getMessage. So this is very important. We have to put everything inside the try catch block. And the next thing is we need to insert the student record. Yes, so now we have to insert the student record. For that we have to write this SQL string SQL, and we are going to insert into student value. So I am going to use another table called student1 here. It's not student, it's actually I have created another table by name student1. So we are going to use the student1 table and we are going to insert records. So let's go to Eclipse. So insert into student1 values. What all values I'm going to insert? For everything I'll give a question mark. So for name, for password, for gender, so everything will have a question mark here. And we'll have subjects and the country. So we have 5 fields. So for each field we'll have a question mark, and then we'll close the query, and then we'll end the Java statement. So next we'll have this prepared statement, object of type prepared statement. Again, these things we have used several times in our previous classes. So it's statement, and it's not new prepared statements, it's a connection dot prepare statement, and then we are passing the SQL string here. Next thing is we have to set, say whatever that has come as input, name, password, gender, subjects, country, we have to map that to the parameters in the query. So it's nothing but statement dot set string. So it's going to be a string, that's every argument is a string here. So parameter index 1, what we're going to insert first is a name, and statement dot set string, and parameter index 2, what we're going to insert is password, and the statement dot set string. So parameter index is 3, and what we're going to insert here is gender. And please follow the order. You have to follow the order the same way it's given, say name, password, gender, subject, and country. So let's go and insert a set a string. So parameter index 4 will be on subjects, and parameter index 5. So this is exactly what we have done in the previous class, right? Just inserting a record. Parameter index 5 will be on country of the student. So after setting all these things, we'll have this int I is equal to, we'll execute the statement dot execute update. So this is for running this insert query on the database, and if I is greater than 0, we can very well perform the check here, like sysout record inserted successfully in the database. Or else we can say else, we can say sysout record not inserted in the database. So this is what we have seen in the previous class, and we have to just get the record and then insert that in the database. Now what we'll do is we'll now go and create this form. We have seen this form in JavaFX, right? We need to create that form. So for that I'm going to create a class registration form here. I'm just putting this UI code in a separate class, and what all we add in this form, we add a label for that's called a name label for saying enter your name, and then we have this text field which is for getting the name from the user, say name text, I'll say like that. We have a label for getting the, for showing this information, enter your password, and then we add this password field, right? That is password field for getting the password from the user. Then what all we add, we had this radio button. So radio button options we add. So radio button option 1 and radio button option 2. So this is for the gender, and we also add checkbox. So checkbox again we add, say that is check 1, and we have 3 subjects there: checkbox, check 2. All these are options of checkbox in our form. Check 3. Okay, so I've included checkbox options too. And for checkbox we add a label, and for gender also we add a label. We forgot that label. We'll say gender label, just to say select your gender. And for checkbox also we add a label, that is we'll say label, check label, or it is subject label. Let's be very clear with this. And let's have a label for the country. We'll ask the student to enter the country, right? So select the country, so country label. And then this is a combo box that we are going to have here. Combo box, it's of first type string, and we call this to be country. Yeah, so we have defined all the fields here for our registration form. The next thing is we should have a submit button. So it's a button of type we'll call this to be submit. So we also have a button, and I'm also having one more label here for throwing all the error messages. I'll call this error label. So I've defined all those objects that will be part of my form. The next thing what I need to define is I'll have something called show form. I'll have a method here, public method, that is show form. And what this one is going to do is it's going to create this form for the user. The very first thing is we'll have this label, that is name label. We'll define that name label is equal to new label, and then we'll say enter your name. That's the very first thing in our form. Likewise, we have a text field here. Let me put this text field. Where is this text field? Yeah, so actually we have defined this to be name text. It's already defined. So name text is equal to new text field. Next, what we are going to get from the user, we are going to get the password. So let's create a new password field. Password field, let's create. Say why I'm not defining it again here is I've just defined it here. Say password field pass text. So we just say what is pass text. It's a new password field, and for this we should have a label too. So let's define a label here. So this is a label. What is this label called? This is a pass label. So what is the text we are going to say here? Enter your password, and we have now name password ready. The next thing is we have to go with this radio button. For this we should have this toggle group. So let's create toggle group. Group is equal to new toggle group, and we have to have all our radio buttons here. So radio button option 1, what is the option 1? It's going to be male, and we'll have the next radio button, that is radio button option 2. What is option 2 that we have defined? That is going to be female. See, again, all these things we have discussed in our JavaFX UI controls, just coding those things here. And what we have to do is we have to set option 1 dot set toggle group. We have to give the group here, and then we have to also define option 2 dot set toggle group. So all these options belong to our toggle group here. So that is group. So our radio option is done. Next is did we define a label for a radio? No. So let's define this label for a radio too. So this is what is this label? It's gender label, and we are defining a label here. What is that label? Enter your, this is select your gender. That's it. So we are selecting the gender. Next comes another label. What is that label? That is subject label, and this is select your subjects. I'll say select your favorite subjects. And here we have to define a checkbox. Let's go and define a checkbox here. So that is this. Let me just put a checkbox like this. Okay. So checkbox check one. What will be check one? That's going to be English. Say let's put some subjects here. Let's again go with the checkbox. Checkbox. I'm just selecting some templates here. Checkbox check two. Check two will be, let's say, DBMS. Let's again create a checkbox. Checkbox check three will be checkbox check three. We can have it as physics. Some subjects will have for the student, and no need to define checkbox check one again here because we have put that in the class definition data attributes, right? So no need to define this. So we have our checkbox subjects also ready. Next we should have this label for our country. So let's go with this label. This will call this to be the country label, and what we are going to say here is select your country. So he's going to select his country, and no need to define country label here. And we have to define a combo box here. So let's go and define a combo box. So this combo box is called country. That's what we have defined, and we have to give some items here. Country dot it's country dot get items dot add. So first we'll add India. Again it's country dot get items dot add. We'll add US here. So these things will be displayed to the user. Country dot get items dot add. So this is UK. So we are displaying three countries, and finally we should have this button interface too. That is submit button. We'll have the submit button, and what we are going to have here is submit. The option will be submit, and we'll have an error label too. For setting any error messages, we'll have this label called error label, and we are not going to have any messages in the error label. It's going to be empty for now. So that's how our form objects have been defined. What next? Yeah, plain simple. When the user clicks on submit, what should happen? That should be the next thing. So let's go and use the submit dot set on action, and then let's call this event handler. And obviously we have this method that should be implemented. So handle will be called when the user clicks on submit. So when the user clicks on submit, what I want to be done is the form should be validated. Let's call validate form here. So validate form, we are going to write this method just having the form validation in a separate method. That's it. And I'll say it's a boolean method. Say boolean connect is equal to validate form. So this validate form is a method that we are going to code inside our registration form itself. So public show form. we can go and have this method here, public method, that is validate form. And what all we are going to validate here, say this is going to be a boolean return, so let's say it's boolean. So what all we are going to validate here is whether the user has entered his password, name and things like that. For that I'll have this boolean proceed is equal to true. Initially I assume that the user has entered everything and we can proceed further, but we'll have to make a check here. What check we are going to do? We're going to check if name text dot get text dot is empty, then what, and I'm going to have one more check here, that is proceed is equal to true. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this error label set. So here is where we are going to use this error label dot set text. What you're going to say, enter your name, and we're going to turn this boolean flag to false, that is proceed. We cannot proceed further, that is the concept here. So if name is empty and this is true, why I'm using this you'll understand when I execute this. So error label dot set text, we'll say it's enter your name, proceed is equal to false. And we can also make other checks. If pass text dot get text dot is empty, then we can say and proceed equals true, only then we'll make this check. See, the point here is if this check fails, then proceed will be false, then no need to even perform this check. But if this check is true, only then we'll go to this check. So if this like name is not empty, then proceed will not be false. So only when proceed is true, we'll go and check whether the password is empty. Say if name itself is empty, why should we go and check the password field? That is the point here. So what I'm trying to do here is, if name is empty, then proceed is false. So this password check will not even happen. We'll not go and do further checks. That's why I'm performing proceed is equal to true check here in every time. So what we can do here is error label dot set text, and now we have to say enter your password. We have to be very specific with our error messages, and we have to say proceed is equal to false. So like that, we have to check whether the user has selected any of the radio options. Say option 1 dot is selected is equal to false, and option 2, say it didn't select any of the options for gender, so we have to say is selected is equal to false, and proceed is equal to true. So it means the name is entered, password is entered, but gender it didn't select. Then what we have to say, we have to use this error label dot set text. We have to say select your gender, and we can say proceed equals false. So that's how you keep on checking. We can also check if you have selected is subjects. How can you check that? Yeah, that's a quite an hectic check here. If check one dot is selected dot, okay, check one dot is selected is equal to false, and check two dot is selected is equal to false. Since it says that he has not selected any of the favorite subjects, check 3 dot is selected is equal to false, and he has entered his password, name, and he has selected his gender. For that we have to check proceed is true. Then what we can say, error label we have. I hope now you know what is the use of error label dot set text. We can say select your favorite subjects and proceed equals false. We just proceed to be false. Finally we have this country check which we have to do, that is the country dot get value is equal to null and proceed is equal to false. Then what we can do is we can this is proceed is equal to true. I am sorry, this is proceed is equal to true. Then what we can do is we can set the error label uh, as select your country dot set text. Select your country, select your country. Okay, so and then we'll set proceed is equal to false here. So we are just checking, say everything will be uh, set to false. When one of the condition fails, it will be set to false. Finally we'll return proceed. So what happens here is if proceed is set to false, false will be returned, or else true will be returned. So based on this connect will be returned. Say if only when the form is valid, if connect only when the form is valid, what we'll do is we will perform certain other checks. What are the checks we are going to do? We will call student dot insert record. So only when the form is valid, the data is valid, only then we can go and call student record. For that we have to create an object of type student. Student s is equal to new student. So we'll create an object of type student, and what we'll do is we have to pass all these values to the constructor here. So I will pass all the values to the constructor. Let us call the uh, all these values. What we are going to pass, name dot get text, that is the student name. Get, it's name text dot get text, so that is the student name. And the next thing we are going to do is pass text dot get text. These are the values that is being entered in the form. Next we need the gender. Say gender is either option 1 or option 2, right? For that we have to check. Say if I'll have this string called gender here, string gender. It's initialized to nothing here. Why we are doing this is, say we are getting this option from the form. If option 1 dot is selected, then what we have to say, gender is equal to option 1 dot get text. So we're getting the text for entered by the user and setting it to gender, and this gender will be passed to our student object. Likewise else we can just do an if option 2 dot is selected, then we can say our the gender is option 2 dot get text. So that is option 2 dot get text. So our gender is defined. Next thing is we can pass gender here. I hope you all have understood why I am doing this. I'm checking whether option 1 is selected in the form. Obviously it is selected, the form is returned a valid form. So if it is selected, then gender will be option 1 dot get text. If option 2 is selected, then gender will be option 2 dot get text. And what else we have to do here? The next thing is we have to get the subjects. Again, this is going to be the same kind of a thing. We'll have a string subjects. I'd say selected subjects. I'll have it as a string. I'll initialize the string. There's nothing in the string here. Now what I'm going to do is if check 1 dot is selected, then what we are going to do is we're going to have selected subjects plus equals, we just concatenated this check 1 dot get text. So and then we'll also add some space here so that it's visible. So it's plus some space also will concatenate. So we're just moving all the selected subjects to our string called selected subjects. So it's going to be repetitive. Check 2 is selected, then it is check 2 dot get text, and if check 3 is selected, then check 3 is selected, then it is check 3 dot get text. Everything is moved to selected subjects, and finally what we do is no need to have a space after check 3. And finally what we are going to do is we are going to populate selected subjects to the database. Okay, finally we have this country. How can we get this country is we can do a typecast of this. It's actually a string, and how can you get this country is country dot get value should be typecasted to a string because it returns an object, and whereas we are passing a string to the database, so that is important. So we are creating this student, and then what we have to do is we have to call insert student here. For that we will call s dot insert student record. So this is going to insert the student record. So here comes the catch. When it inserts the student record, it's going to perform all that insert statement here. It'll say insert, and it'll insert, or else it'll say record not inserted in the database. We can also set this value in our error label itself. For that we can say return true if it is inserted, or else return false. We'll make this as a boolean method, return false if it is not inserted. Even if it is an exception, we can say return false. And we have to convert this insert student to a boolean method. It's not void anymore, it's boolean. Why I am performing this is I can just put the error in the label. That's why I'm performing this. Let's go and check. So I'm calling insert student here, right? Next what I can do is I can catch this boolean result is equal to insert student, and if the student insert was successful, we can do error label dot set text. We can say record inserted successfully, and else then it means the record was not inserted. So we can just put an error label dot set text. We can say record not inserted in the database. Anyway, there will be an exception here that will also be handled. So this is with respect to an insert student, and we also add this if connect. If the form is not valid, what we can do, we can just turn the contents in the label to red. That's what I've done here. Error label dot set text fill to color red. That's it. Because when the form is not valid, already the info is displayed in the error label. I'm just turning it to red. Or else if the form is valid, get the data and insert the student record by creating a connection to the database. That's it. So that's how we have written this code. Let's go and check whether this one is working. I'm not sure whether this one is going to work. Let's go and delete all the records in our student database. I'm just going to use this table called student1 here. Student I have used that in the previous class. Now let's see how to use the student1 table. Let's check. Let me go to SQL. I have clicked the wrong option here. Let's delete. Come on, quick. So let's how will you delete? It's delete from student and then student1. I'm sorry, student1, and then you click on go. Finally, you have to get all the records deleted in the student table. That's what is our objective. And then we'll try inserting a record from our form too. Okay. And we are missing certain other things here. So what we have to do, say the important things we are missing, say what we have to start here. For this we have to create an object of type registration form. Let's go and create an object of type registration form called student form, and what we'll do is we'll do student form dot show form. So what this one does is it creates an object of type registration form, and then it tries to show this form. So again, when we are showing this form, see the very important thing I have missed, that is we should have a grid pane layout, we should have this scene and then things like that. So what I will do here is I will use maybe a vertical layout or a grid pane layout. Let's use a grid pane itself. It takes some time for a grid pane. That is grid pane root is equal to new grid pane, and now we need to add all our items to our grid pane. That is root dot add, and then we have to give the child. First one is the name label, that is the thing. Column index is 0, row index is 1. First row we're going to have this name, and then root dot add, and then name text will have name text, and then column index will be 1 and row index will be 1. So like that we have to just align everything in a grid layout. Next comes pass label. Pass label, column index is 0, row index is now 2. Likewise root dot add, we'll have pass text. Pass text column index is what is the column index? It's 0. It's 1 and the row index is 2. So we have to be very cautious while we are adding things here. Pass label, what is the column index? Column index is uh, 0 and row index is 2. Likewise name label, its column index is 0 and row index is 1. So please be cautious while you are adding things to the grid pane. It's very simple, like what we have done earlier. Next we have to add the gender label. Root dot add gender label, and column index is 0 whereas row index is 3. Likewise root dot add its gender, what we have here for it's option 1, I'm sorry, it should be option 1 because we have to add the options here. Option 1 in column 0 and row 4. Root dot add option 2 in row 5 column 0. Root dot add, now we have to add this subject label, and what is the column index? 0 and row index is 6. And we have to add the subject checkbox elements. It takes some time here. Check 1 column 0 row 7, root dot add, and check 2 column 0 row index is 8. Here I have to add the column index to be column 0. Take some time, we'll finish this up quickly. And check 1 root dot add, check 3 column index is 0, 9 row index. So we are finished with the thing. Next thing is our country label should be added. Root dot add, that is country label. Column index is 0, row index is 10, and root dot add country, column index is 0, row index is 11. Next we'll have the submit button also to be added. Root dot add, so submit, column index is 0, row index is 12. Okay, I have not selected all these column indexes. Let's say it's 0. Everything is in the first column itself. Let's put this to be 0. This is also 0 and this is also 0. So we have added all the elements. Next we have to add this error element. Root dot add error label, column index is 0 and row index is 13. So everything is added to our thing. Next what we have to do, we have to create this scene. Next is scene, oh I'm sorry, it is scene. So it is scene, it's a JavaFX scene. We have added the root there. Next we have to go with primary stage dot set scene, that's also done, and primary stage dot set width. So here is this catch, while you're using this primary stage, where is primary stage defined? Primary stage is defined in our start method. So while you're calling this dot show form, you have to also pass a stage, that is primary stage here. We have to pass the stage because we're using the primary stage, or else this is not going to work. and we should also receive the primary stage in our show form. Let's go and receive that stage, primary stage here. So I missed that, but now we are passing the primary stage dot set width. We'll have the width to be 500 and primary stage dot set height to be 500 and the primary stage dot show. So that's how the form gets shown to the user. So all these things we have to take care of. So validation is done, creation of the form is done, we have created an instance, and what is this error here? Primary stage, okay, this is already defined. I need to define that. What a blunder I have made. Yeah. So let's see whether our code works now. Registration form is done, insert record, and then validate form is also done, and student class is also done, class DBMS connection is also done. Let's check whether we have deleted all the records here. Yes, when we browse there will be no records in our student1 table. What we'll do now is we'll execute our code and check whether this one inserts a record. That is the most important thing. Let's try it now. Let's check. Let's do a control F11, control S, control F11. Let's see whether the form is getting shown to the user. Where is this? I have coded this show form. Did I put everything inside the show form? Okay, the problem is I put everything inside the handle. Again, a big mistake. Let's do a perform X and control X, and then we'll put that inside the show form. Maybe after this. Now our problem will be solved, I guess. Let me run this again. Yeah, certain small mistakes here and there. Let's hope that the form is now shown to the user. Okay, void show form. That's what is okay. What is this? I'm missing launch args here. Let's run this again. I'm sorry for all these mistakes. Yeah. Now we got the form. Yes, it's up and ready. Now we'll enter a valid records. Say let's enter Satish, password to be Satish123. He selects gender, selects some subjects, selects a country, and submits. Let's hope that this gets inserted. It says record inserted successfully. We have to check our database. We have to be sure by checking the database only. Let's check it up. Hope that this record gets into our database. Yes, somehow you're successful coding this. So a record got inserted successfully. So we can also try other things. So what other things we can try is we can check the other issues, or what if the form is not a valid form? Am I still submitting a record to the database? If you submit a form without the data to the database, exceptions will arise. So we have to check that too. For instance, if I'm not entering my name and then if I submit, say enter your name. So if I enter my name Satish and if I submit, say now proceed is true for name check, right? So when I submit, enter your password. So Satish123, and if I submit, select your gender. See how specific I am with the error messages. When I submit, select your favorite subjects. So when I submit, select your country. So perfectly fine. So this one works fine. I want you to practice this code and execute this code and see how it works.